Welcome back. The House releasing the text of foreign aid bills totaling more than $95 billion. The breakdown goes like this: $60 billion for Ukraine, $26 billion for Israel, and $8 billion for Taiwan. Speaker Mike Johnson also announcing the Rules Committee will release text on a border security bill. That will include measures such as remaining in Mexico, fixing the broken asylum and parole processes, and rebuilding portions of the wall. Joining me now is California Congressman Mike Garcia, a member of the House Intelligence, Appropriations, and Science and Space and Technology Committees. Congressman, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks very much for being here. Maria. What are you expecting in the way of voting on these bills?
Well, we're going to see some probably high drama and some emotion and maybe a little dentistry as we go through the procedural votes, what's called the rules votes on the floor that lead up to the bills being allowed to come to the floor for up-down votes. There's a lot of resistance within our party, primarily over the Ukraine package being $60 billion. I myself am not against supporting Ukraine, but I want to make sure that we're right-sizing the package and that we're focusing on giving the lethal aid or the munitions to put warheads on Russian foreheads, and not necessarily giving them the blankets, the beans, and the Band-Aids, but giving them the bullets to win the war. And so that's what I'm doing the deep dive on right now. I'm very interested to see what this border security bill looks like. That is the #1 threat to our own nation. And if we're going to be taking care of foreign nations, we need to be focusing on the primary national security threat, obviously, which is our southern border, which is completely wide open because of President Biden right now.
So two questions. On #1, on the Ukraine aid, are you expecting that this will be in the form of a loan? President Trump has talked a lot about turning this money into a loan for Ukraine. And #2, do you think that the border security bill is going to get enough support? I mean, your colleagues are very angry that you're talking about more money to Ukraine while having yet to secure the border. What will be the fate of that bill?
Yeah, and let's be eyes wide open. Anything that we do with the in the House with the majority that we have right now, anything border related will get shot down by the Senate and will not get signed into law by the president. So this border issue will remain an issue until we have a new president in the Oval Office. This is a man-made problem. His name is Joe Biden. We're going to continue to push and message and make sure that we're doing everything we can to legislate against him. But the reality is that the border security issues will probably be stripped out and bounced back to the House for a final up-down vote for foreign aid. So that's where the focus is. As far as whether this is going to be a loan to Ukraine, that is my expectation. We're doing the reading of all the text real time today. It should be. Look, they should be buying stuff. We should be giving them stuff if we can, but they should also be looking to purchase stuff. And as they get back on their feet, they start exporting grain, their GDP starts to improve, and they start to claw more regions of the Donbas area back. We should be looking to get repayment on a lot of, especially the humanitarian aid and the direct government support. We should not be giving humanitarian aid and direct government support at the levels that we have been, and that this bill asked for. And if we do, we should expect to get most of that money back. The munitions is a different conversation.
Well, I'm trying to understand why the Senate knocks down, or you're expecting the Senate to knock down any effort to secure the border. Why? I mean, you know, I don't do your colleagues on the left not view the border as the national security threat that it is?
No, they don't. Frankly, I've had FBI Director Wray and Attorney General Garland in hearings over the last week. We've railed on them. Those are cabinet members who report directly to the president who don't recognize the border as the threat that it is. It's an existential threat.
Wow.
75,000 people who died of fentanyl poisonings in the last year because of it. 7.5 million people here illegally, and so the Senate is run by Schumer, who effectively reports to Joe Biden. This is what Joe Biden ran on. This is what he will now lose this election over in the next coming months, and border security. And if I can, Maria, just for a point of indulgence, as the first Hispanic to represent California, first Republican Hispanic to represent California since 1883. I will say this: the Hispanics value strength. They value security. And above all things, they're Americans. I'm the son of an immigrant who came here from Mexico legally in 1959. They like strength. They like security. That includes economic security, and that includes border security. They don't like people cutting in line. So the fact that the Senate is turning a blind eye to this border issue, they're fearful of a very far left base. The fact that they're turning their backs on Israel now because they're fearful of a very far left pro-Hamas and appeasement strategy base is why they will lose these elections coming up here in November.
Well, that's incredible, and thank you for that. We were just having a whole conversation about the support from the Hispanic community and the Latino community for President Trump for all of the reasons that you just mentioned. And yet, DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas is going to testify before the Senate Homeland Security today after Democrats quickly voted to kill the impeachment articles against him yesterday. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer proposed a point of order, deeming the first article unconstitutional, saying that it fails to meet the high standard for removal. How is it possible that it fails to meet the high standard for removal when, in fact, he has been having a dereliction of duty, blowing off the law, allowing 10 million people illegally to enter this country on Joe Biden's watch?
The only way that is possible is because of the tyranny of the majority in the Senate and frankly, the tyranny coming out of the White House and the tone deafness of both of those groups to the fact that this southern border issue is a national security crisis that we have not seen the likes of, in my opinion, since World War II. This is an invasion. We need to take it very seriously. 7,000% increase in illegal Chinese immigrants coming across our border just in the last couple of months. These are fighting age males, primarily single, this isn't a coincidence. So we need to treat this like what it is. It's an invasion. Mayorkas is following Biden's marching orders. So in the end, Biden is ultimately responsible for this. He will be held accountable for this in November. And this is why he will lose the election again.
Well, it's incredible to me that the Democrats are ignoring this Chinese national situation. I mean, why are they here? What are they doing? Setting up a quiet army here in America so that they could be used as saboteurs later if Xi Jinping directs that. No comment from your colleagues. They're not doing anything about it. And even Garland had no answers. I mean, you questioned AG Merrick Garland yesterday on Biden's mental capacity and mishandling of classified documents. And he was also asked about all those Chinese nationals. He had no answers. Let's watch this.
Your verbal testimony say you have no doubt that there is no cognitive impairment of the president. I have seen the classified documents, and I'm aware of the nature of at least some of these documents. They are of the highest level of national security intelligence, and they are extremely relevant even today. These documents that were found in the garage of President Biden. And so if it's not a cognitive impairment problem, if he's competent and you're confident in that, why is he not being charged?
Mr. Herr described in detail in his report his explanation for why he decided not to bring them. He was subject to some 5 hours of testimony on that subject.
But you disagreed with the foundational premise of his assertions, which is the rationale was that he was cognitively incapable of understanding what he was doing. He was too old to face charges.
How did he answer that, Congressman?
Well, he said, no, that wasn't the rationale. But when you read the report, that was, in fact, the rationale. He also gave himself an A as the Attorney General when I asked him how he would grade himself in a time where we have record high crime and this invasion at our southern border, people not being prosecuted. By the way, crossing the border illegally is a crime, and it's just not being prosecuted right now. So these are the types of characters that we're working with here right now, and this is why we absolutely need to get control of the Senate. And the executive branch drives these issues. And so what we're doing in the House is trying to be an opposition force. We're trying to give options to the president, write blueprints for border security with H.R. 2, and they're flat out rejecting it. They are behaving and voting out of fear of their far left base rather than their own national security interests.
That's incredible. Congressman, thanks very much for your work. We'll be watching you.